use an analogy. Let's see if you can fill in the blank. NBA Jam is to basketball as blank is to football. Think about it for a second, although I'll bet you already have it. If you answered NFL Blitz, you're right. NFL Blitz was released by Midway for arcades in 1997 and later ported to consoles in 1998. The NFL Blitz version you see on the GXTV behind me is for the N64, and I also have the original PlayStation version on disc as well. NFL Blitz is still fantastic today, much like NBA Jam also is able to hold its own. NFL Blitz did a lot of things different from NBA Jam, however. The first big difference is that the players are all made of polygons for the first time, which was a big departure from the digitized sprites that Midway had used for NBA Jam, Tournament Edition, and then later NHL Open Ice. This allowed for more players to be on screen, it allowed for more frenetic action, and it just looked great at the time. In arcades, the polygons moved at a smooth 60 frames per second, and the game just looked, sounded, and reacted the way that we wanted it to sound, and that was really neat. NFL Blitz differs from traditional football in a couple of different ways. The first difference, as you probably know, is that first downs require 30 yards in order to gain. So you have 4 downs in order to get 30 yards. If you don't, you turn the ball over. Now, getting 30 yards may sound like a lot, but the way that NFL Blitz is built, it really isn't. This is a game full of big plays. You can pull off plays like the bomb, for example, where you send your 2 wide receivers deep and then you have your slot receiver cut in. You also have your actually, it's not your slot receiver, it's your running back. But that's the play that I always use. Is called the bomb, and it works pretty well against the computer. Of course, when I play against other people, I have to switch up my plays. But there are a variety of different plays you can choose from in order to get those yards. And once you do, if you pull them off, it's really a go big or go home situation. Not every play goes for a touchdown, of course, but there are a lot of plays that will consume chunks of yardage. In addition, offensive players have turbo that they can use to gain a little bit of speed to get past defenders, and there's also a spin or juke button so they can avoid tackles. So 30 yards in order to get a first down is one big difference. The other big difference is that unlike a Madden game or unlike any kind of football simulation, there are no penalties in NFL Blitz. So if you see a pass coming to a wide receiver, you're on defense, and you want to break up that play, you don't have to worry about getting called for pass interference if you decide to tackle the wide receiver in midair. That is completely legal here. Also, if you're losing or if you just feel like being an aggressor, you can continue to tackle and hit a player after a whistle has been sounded and the play is over. These are things later on that the NFL didn't care for too much, and one of the reasons why Midway really was kind of in a pickle with the NFL late in its career, but we'll get to that later. So NFL Blitz, as I said, still fantastic, still relatively easy to find for both your PlayStation and Nintendo 64. There are some differences between the two. The Nintendo 64 version looks and reacts a lot more like the arcade. Players don't look as blocky as they do in the PlayStation version. The frame rate's a little bit better. And there are even some extra sound bites from Tim Kitzrow that aren't on the PlayStation version, which is a little unusual. The PlayStation version, meanwhile, has a lot of the arcade trappings that the Nintendo 64 version does not. For example, a lot of the full motion video sequences that the arcade version uses for its attract modes are not in the 64 version for obvious reasons. They are included on the PlayStation version. Also, the music and the voices are a bit cleaner sounding. They're not required to be as compressed. So if you're an audiophile, the PlayStation version is the better way to go. However, it's interesting to note that the PlayStation version also has a little bit cleaner dialogue from Tim Kitzrow than the Nintendo 64 version, if you care about that. As I mentioned, both versions are relatively easy to find out in the wild these days, and if you have a PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3, the PlayStation copy of NFL Blitz will play on either or both of those, so look for those if you're interested. After NFL Blitz, of course, there had to be a sequel because the game was a runaway hit. Enter NFL Blitz 99 for arcades, and if you were playing at home, you got to play NFL Blitz 2000, which is this guy right here. Sorry about that. NFL Blitz 2000 for consoles is a much more difficult version of NFL Blitz to play, especially if you're playing solo, because the computer players are a lot smarter. Plays that used to work all the time on the original NFL Blitz no longer work with as much success here, at least as consistently. So you have to be ready for that if you're playing that version of the game. There are some extras and some secrets in NFL Blitz 2000 and NFL Blitz 99 that weren't in the original game. And the most notable thing about NFL Blitz 99 was that you were able to use a Nintendo 64 memory card to transfer plays that you had made at home and use those in the arcade version, so that's kind of a plus. Of course, if you can find an NFL Blitz 99 machine and you happen to have your Nintendo 64 save, good for you, and tell me about it if you've actually used the Nintendo 64 memory card on Blitz 99. I'd love to hear your stories. Then after NFL Blitz 2000, things took a turn for the worse, unfortunately. NFL Blitz 2001 is less a Blitz game in the arcade sense and more a football game with the Blitz name attached to it. It looks like Blitz and it plays like Blitz, but it just doesn't have that arcade sensibility to it that I found, and really is my least favorite in the series. If you're looking to collect these games, you most certainly can. NFL Blitz 2001 won't cost you very much money. It's notable, and I don't have this version of it, but the Dreamcast version of NFL Blitz 2000 is really as close to the arcade as you'll get, with 60 frames per second animation, great sound quality, and it looks just like the arcade game. So if you have a Dreamcast still, first of all, thumbs up. Second of all, add NFL Blitz 2000 to your collection if you don't have it already. It's a great, great version of a great game. So, arcades are in their decline by this point, and Midway kind of had to reinvent itself with its sports games. Enter NFL Blitz 2002, which is this guy right here, and was released for the PlayStation 2, the Nintendo GameCube, and the Xbox. Blitz 2002 has great visuals, looks even better than the arcade in spots, plays just like a traditional Blitz game should. It's based on an arcade game, but it's not a port of an arcade game, so it is a bit different and will take some getting used to. It uses Criterion's renderware middleware to generate some great visuals. As a matter of fact, for the PlayStation 2 and for that particular generation, the developers of the Blitz games, as well as Midway's other arcade sports games for that generation, used that middleware quite frequently and with good success. The games did look great. If I have an issue with NFL Blitz 2002, it's that you can't adjust the controls enough. There are certain buttons that are locked, so you can't customize your controls the way that you want to. I have very specific ways that I like playing the game, buttons that I'm used to using that I can't do in Blitz 2002. The other thing is that navigating the menus is unnecessarily complicated. There is no autosave option, so you have to go and manually save your profile, and that can be frustrating if you forget to do it because you can lose your progress, and it does take time to be able to work your way through a season or to be able to work your way through round-robin play and get through all of the NFL teams. Still, it was a great way to bring the NFL Blitz brand back, and it did really feel like an NFL Blitz game on a new console, and that's great. So, playing the analogy game again, if NFL Blitz 2002 is to the original NFL Blitz, then Blitz 2003 with Michael Strahan in the cover here is to NFL Blitz 2000 or NFL Blitz 99. Blitz 2003 is another one of those games that fixes the AI, makes it a lot more difficult to play against, and if you have plays that you're pretty comfortable with running pretty often, and I'm guilty of that when I'm playing against a computer, that's not going to work here. The computer is a lot smarter, will shut a lot of those plays down, and the challenge is definitely up there. Again, especially in the higher difficulty settings. That's not a bad thing, but it's certainly a little bit of a slap in the face, or a little bit of a like a cold water to the face, if you will, if you're used to dominating in the Blitz game before it. It makes you think outside the box. It forces you to use different plays to be able to catch the computer off guard. And I guess that's a good thing. But just be ready for it if you've played Blitz 2002 and not 2003. The computer is much tougher. So the last game in the Blitz series that came out before Midway unfortunately went bankrupt was a game called NFL Blitz Pro, which is this guy right here with TO on the cover. NFL Blitz Pro is basically NFL Blitz 2001. It has the Blitz name on it, but it's more of a football game that has Blitz trappings. It is meant to be a sim with Blitz components to it, so you're playing a full football team rather than a limited number of players on the field. There are penalties if you want to activate those. My big issue with NFL Blitz Pro is that the passing game is just not what I wanted it to be or what I'm used to. The camera pulls way out. Receivers don't necessarily jump for the ball the whole time. It's a game where if you have a good running game, you're going to do well in Blitz Pro. If you have a good passing game, it's going to take you a little bit of time to adjust to it. Next to NFL Blitz 2001, I guess it's no coincidence that Blitz 2001 and Blitz Pro are the two games in this series that I like the least. So I guess there's that. It's kind of funny to look at the series the way it is each of the games in the series has its counterpart in a later generation. NFL Blitz had NFL Blitz 2002. Both games felt the same. Both were new or reboots, and both were pretty successful. NFL Blitz 2000 versus NFL Blitz 2003. Those games are similar in that the AI is a lot harder. They added some secrets, and it's really a game for NFL Blitz players who like the first. And then NFL Blitz 2001 and NFL Blitz Pro kind of take this series a bit too far. People are tired of it at this point, and they feel more like football games with the Blitz name attached and almost unnecessary, which is unfortunate. So that's a look at the NFL Blitz series, which was Midway's next entry after NBA Jam. It was big for them, but it was not the last of Midway's big arcade titles. We'll cover those and a couple that I've missed in our next installment of Retro Unscripted, which will be next week. Until then, thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you on the next Retro Unscripted.